Hello, check test 1 2. Well, good evening, everybody. How much latency do we have tonight? Do we have good audio? I should check. Well, yeah, sounds good. Alrighty. Hi, how's everybody doing tonight? It's Tuesday, 7 p.m. in the Mountain Time Zone. And so happy to be here with you all tonight. Got the worst haircut of my life this week. I did manage to get, cleaned up a little bit, right? I don't look like a billy goat anymore. But as always, thanks, Aaron. I'd like to run for a couple of minutes here and give people a chance to get on. If you have an RV related question, excuse me, just throw it over there in the chat window. And if you're just in and watching tonight, drop us a comment as well. Let us know where you're watching from. So we'll do some quick shout outs here. Ronald Lee has some questions, got in early and asked a few questions, and we'll get to your questions in just a bit. Ronald. John is in from Michigan. It looks like Ray Castile's in. Aaron, of course, is here as always. Thank you, Aaron. You're really Johnny on the spot as usual. Matthew Tola from out there in Michigan. Hey, Matthew, I went and checked out your Facebook page. I was on my public person page, my TR Bolin Photographer and Naturalist Facebook page, because I posted a video today that I think I'll share with you guys here real quick. But we got snow, and we got a lot of it. So let's see if I got to go over here, do this. I think I'm kind of finally getting this sorted out. And let's see. There we go. Now, let's see if I can do this. So this is from this morning. I had to take my car in for service today. And so this is about 8:15 this morning. We got quite a bit of heavy snow overnight. And let's see here. We got to do that, don't I? Okay. So we got quite a bit of heavy snow overnight. All right, what's going on here? I'm sorry. Technical errors. Carbon unit failure. I might have to replay this. Okay, what's going on here? I don't get it. Well, unfortunately, I can't show you the video for some reason. That's weird. Well, anyway, we got a fair amount of snow overnight. Let me come back over here and get back on screen here and turn this off. Huh. I had this working earlier. Don't you love computers? Well, anyway, we got quite a bit of snow here and had a bunch of leaves down, tree limbs down. I mean, huge limbs. It was I had to dodge quite a few down limbs headed over to get the Subaru service this morning. So, a couple more quick shout outs. Round Town Scouters in from Columbus. Marie Rosen, welcome. Pause and Plays. Just a watcher out there in San Diego. Excellent. Love San Diego. Spent quite a bit of time in San Diego there working with Qualcomm. I lived in my RV over there in La Jolla for about 6 months. What was the name of that place? Anyway, did a really fun project with Qualcomm and loved San Diego. Also, ended up staying down there at, what do they call it, the Mission Bay RV Park. I was down there for a couple, 3, 4, 5 weeks. They had a 4-week stay limit, and so it was weird. I stayed for 4 weeks, and then it was I believe it was Labor Day weekend, so I had to move out because I didn't have a reservation anyway. So I ended up going to the KOA, and down in I was in El Cajon. Sorry, I wasn't in La Jolla. I was in El Cajon, and then moved back up to the Mission Bay RV Park there, which is right on the ocean. Amazing place, run by the city of San Diego. Anyway, okay, so don't forget to put your questions over in the chat window. We'll do a couple more quick check-ins here, and then I'll go get started with questions. Chuck Felt from South Dakota. Hey, Chuck. Tim is in. Hi, Tim. Tim Myers is in as well. Hi, Tim. We got a couple Tims in. Marie from Pensacola. I will answer your question. Zach White, what's up from West Virginia? First time joining. Awesome. I have a couple questions. Okay, throw them over there in the window, Zach, and we'll get to you. Randy Waller's in. Hey, Randy. How you been? Yeah, I imagine it's been a busy summer. Super glad to have you in, though. Okay, so, Ron is in. Great, Ron. I'm glad to see you're in. You're in Santa Rosa, held up in an RV park due to very high winds. Yeah, Santa Rosa is where I would usually stay on my commute from Arizona out to Arkansas to see my dad. There, as you get off the interstate and you go out towards Flying J, there's a couple of old truck stops there between the interstate and Flying J. If you take the first exit, it's Santa Rosa, and I've parked there and camped there many nights. That's a very convenient place to stop. Okay, so I'll get to the other questions and do some more check-ins in a minute, but we want to get to Ronald Lee's questions. He says he wants to add solar to his 2004 Newmar Mountain Air diesel pusher 4016. I need to know where the support beams to screw down the brackets for the solar panels. Okay, so if you get on the roof and you look at the back cap, so that's the fiberglass piece of the rear cap of the RV. It comes up and it mounts, probably 12 to 14 inches from the real back of the RV to basically where your roof starts. Okay? From there all the way to the front, your beams, rafters are going to be 16 inches on center. Okay? So if you take that seam from where your roof stops and the rear cap starts and measure 16 inches on center, you should be right on the beams. Hopefully that helps. Make sure when you screw those brackets down that you get yourself some Dicor lap sealant tape and use tape underneath the bracket, and then of course use lap sealant itself that comes in the caulking tubes, right, on the top of the bracket and cover the screw. And that'll make sure that it's nice and weatherproof, waterproof. And he says, question 2, adding lithium battery to my HB and AGM to my CB. Okay. Do I need to change the setting on the inverter, OEM 2K inverter? Will my battery boost still work, or do I need to disconnect it? Okay. First off, yes, you need to change the settings because your lithium batteries have a different charging profile than your AGMs or lead acids. AGM, lead acid, same thing. Okay. And so in your 04, do you have the Magnum inverter? That's what I had. I had the Magnum. I actually had to replace it, and I put a Xantrex in. Same difference. Okay, they were built by the same company. Now they've been spun off, and it's a long story. But yes, because the full charge on your lithiums at the end of the charge cycle should be around 14.6 volts, give or take a few volts. Okay, and then your float on your lithiums is 14.2, whereas on AGMs your top voltage might be around 14.2 and your float voltage is about 13.6. And so to make sure you're getting your batteries completely full, you will need to adjust the settings. On the older Magnums, you might have to set it manually. I'm trying to remember. On my inverter, on my new one, my Xantrex, which was basically the same thing as the Magnum, I had to go in and set it up manually. And so what you want to do is, depending upon who the manufacturer of your batteries are, but you'll want to look at the manufacturer of your batteries and figure out what your charging voltages and set points and stuff are, and then manually go into the Magnum and set those up. And it's actually pretty straightforward. So yes, you will need to change the settings, and yes, your battery boost will still work. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, on Newmars and many Class A's, but on Newmars, they put in what they call a battery boost switch. And what that does is it ties your house batteries to your chassis. So if you get into a situation where you got a dead battery on your RV, you can push the switch and start, and it will pull power from the house batteries. So Ronald, I hope that helps. Let me scan back down here and get to where we ended up. Okay. All right, Marie Rosen in Pensacola. She asks, when do I run my generator? I'm brand new. My husband died a month after we got the RV. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, Marie. Are you in an RV park, spending winter, that kind of thing? If so, then I would recommend you just run it once a month for about 15 or 20 minutes under load. And so what you do is it's simple. Just go out to the pedestal and turn the circuit breaker off on the pedestal. And then go start your generator. And that will put the generator under load and run an AC or some heat or something like that to get to exercise that generator a little bit. If you're talking about being boondocking or dry camping, you want to start that generator when those batteries get down to about 12.4 volts, okay, assuming you have lead acid batteries. If you're running lithiums, you can go down to about 11.5. But 12.4, you don't want to go much below about 12.4 on lead acids, especially if you have a generator. Kick that generator on and get those batteries charged back up. I hope that answers your question, Marie. If it didn't, feel free to throw more details or ask another question in there, and I'll do what I can to try to help you out. But that's what we're here for. Randy, you are the man. Thank you so much for that super chat. I greatly appreciate that. It's very nice of you. Okay. Okay, pause and plays. Yeah, expensive place to live for sure. We were talking about San Diego. Mission Bay Park is really nice. It sure is. I mean, it's just a big paved parking lot, so there's really nothing all that special about it. But it's sure nice to be right there by the ocean. I mean, you're 5 minutes from the water, which is pretty cool. There's also there's another big RV park on the other side of the bay. It's private. I don't remember what the name of that one was, but boy, I sure liked it down there. Doug D, hi, how are you this evening? Great to have you in. Marie Rosen, okay, also, I spent $1,000 for a guy to do an inspection and get my brand new backup camera working. He said it worked, and it doesn't. Comes on, but then goes off. Any suggestions? Well, Marie, that's a drag. Okay, so generally backup cameras, now it depends on the camera and there's a bunch of other stuff to it. But generally the backup camera will only come on when the transmission goes into reverse. Excuse me. So that would be the one thing that I would ask is that I'm assuming that like when you start the rig, it probably comes up, the camera turns on very briefly and then shuts off. And then, but when you put it in reverse, does the camera turn on? Because that's typically the way those backup cameras work, is they don't turn on until you put it in reverse. Tim asks, is it okay to have a solar charger on your RV battery all winter? Outside disconnected from the trailer though. Yeah, sure. But you want to top off that water every once in a while. Um, but yeah, you can leave it on there. As long as you got a decent solar charge controller and it doesn't overcharge the batteries and they just float. About every other month, I would just top them off with distilled water. Keep an eye on those, but that should be okay for you, Tim. Tommy Billings is new. Thanks, Tommy. Great to have you in tonight. We live in our travel trailer. Is it okay to leave the water heater on 24/7? It's pretty much what we have been doing, but wondering, is it a bad thing? No, it's just fine. It's just like any water heater or anything else. Just leave it turned on. It'll run itself. Yeah, it's perfectly fine to leave it on. Uh, I never turn mine off, except like when I was moving, I would flip mine off. But other than that, I would just leave it on. Okay, Doug D says they got snow in the mountains here in Vegas last night. I'm not surprised. It was a really cold storm that rolled in, and I think it caught a few people off guard. But yeah, I was shocked when I got up this morning. There was about 3 inches of snow on the ground, and then about seven, excuse me, about 7:30, it really hauled off and really cut loose. So, thank you everybody. Let's see, lap sealant, bracket, and die-core caulking over the screws. Absolutely. Yep, good one, Randy. You're very welcome, Randy, and thank you, Aaron. Zach White, he says, I recently replaced the vanity sink and added shut quarter turn-off PEX connections. The smell underneath the vanity is awful. I think it's coming from the gray tank. Oops, sorry about that. I think it's coming from the gray tank in the trap. Not sure what to do. Okay, so over on my website, trboland.com/bio, bio-geo-method, method. That's a cheat sheet, and on there I want you to do the gray tank soak. So what you should do is you just need to clean the gray tank a little bit, and it's basically fill the gray tank with fresh water. When it's about half full, add a cup of borax, 2 cups of concentrated degreaser, your choice, Zap or whatever you can get wherever you're at, and then let it soak. Let it soak for a couple weeks, and then take it and dump it. Make sure you're not soaking during cold, freezing weather, right? You'll break plumbing if you do that, so that's not a good thing. But just soak it, and yeah, it's probably coming up from the tank, and it's probably actually coming up through the floor, um, because that pipe goes straight into that bay, and a lot of times those bays will have a little bit of an odor to them. It smells like a gray tank to me. So I hope that helps, Zach. Just scrub that gray tank out. Tom Downey is in. Oh, and he's at his kids by now, right, Tom? Great to have you in from Texas. You're very welcome, Ronald. Okay. RH2669 says, I'm going to redo the water compartment. Which do I suggest, PEX A or PEX B? I'd be lying if I said I knew what the difference was between those. I didn't know there were 2 types. I've used PEX. And I'm trying to think. I'm betting they probably used PEX A from the factory. But I don't know that for sure. I'm not an expert on that. But yeah, I would use what's there. So I would match what's there. So if you have PEX A there, then I would use PEX A. If it's PEX B, then I would use PEX B. And always on those pipes is the codes marked that you can read that will tell you what kind of pipe it is. Tom Downey mentions that on the boosted start, connected to 2 different voltages, your starter will suffer. Yeah, I think it's such a short cycle time, you don't want to be sitting there grinding on it. Yeah, that's for sure. But it beats having to wait for a tow truck or a jump. But yeah, that's a good point, Tom. Tim Meyer says he's planning a trip to Salt Lake City next April. I have been hammered with snow in the past traveling I-80 in April. Is there a safer southern route to Utah? Well, I-70, but it's not that much safer because you still have to cross through Kansas, and I-70 in Kansas can be bad. I-70 in Utah isn't much better, and I-70 in Colorado, you got to climb and go through the Lincoln. Is it Lincoln Tunnel or Kennedy Tunnel? What's the tunnel called up there on I-70? So yeah, I would say airplane. That's going to be your safest route, Tim. But yeah, you're right. You can get drilled in April up there with snow. Oh, Doug D says it's campland on the bay, pricey. Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it is pricey. That's in San Diego, referencing back to those of you that are tuned in late and didn't catch on the early part of the conversation I was having with Doug about San Diego camping. Tom Downey, we're in Canyon Lakes, Texas this winter. Oh, okay, so you're wintering down there. Cool. Carla Sheaves, hi. Great to have you in, Carla, and be a new questioner. She says, hi, I'm having trouble with an old crank-out window not closing all the way. Okay, so it's probably dirt and dust and nastiness and maybe a little corrosion. So get yourself some silicone spray or WD-40 and work all of the joints, all of the hinges. So on those crank-out windows, there's a little A-frame looking thing that expands and contracts, right? And so what I want you to do is with your WD-40 or whatever, I want you to spray all of those pivot points underneath the window, and then I want you to spray the hinge. Let me get down here where you can see me on the screen. Spray the hinge on that window, and then take that WD-40 and spray out the jamb. Okay, so where the window comes in and meets, there's the inside and the window meets it, kind of like you can't see, kind of like this. Well, anyway, spray that jam out with WD-40 and then just wipe everything down really good with a soft cloth. And try that. Typically why they don't close is they just get jammed up. There's a little dirt. There might be a little dirt down in the gear part, where the knob is. If you spray all that out with WD-40, wipe it down good with a soft cloth. And then work it in and out. Just work it back and forth a little bit. It should loosen it up and it should close up for you. Tom Downey says the Wasatch got 12 inches of snow as we guessed. Yeah, I saw that they were really getting hammered for sure. Ronald Lee, he says, my never cold 1201 fridge worked on AC and LPG when my coach is parked. Temp 1 degree in the freezer, 33 on the fridge. But when I travel with the LPG on, the temps start to drop, 27 freezer and 59 on the fridge. All right. So here's the deal with those fridges. And in fact, I've got a note on my list of videos to do, and I have quite a few now. I got this little project I've been working on for quite a while off the main burner, and now I'm back to working on my own stuff. And on my list is to talk about why those fridges don't cool. But the situation is this. Those absorption fridges, they get warm, okay? And what happens is at the top of the fridge, there's a thing called a condenser. And that's really where all the cooling happens, right, is in this condenser. Well, if the temperature behind the fridge is high, then it's not real efficient and it has a hard time cooling. So when you're driving down the road, not enough air circulates through that compartment behind the fridge to carry away the heat so that it will work efficiently, and that's what causes them to warm up. The solution is they make a kit, a pair of fans that you can buy. They power off 12 volts. You can hook it up right there at the back of the fridge. And that fan kit mounts up inside of the compartment behind the fridge, and it pushes air up through there to the vent on the roof and helps it cool much better. And that works even when you're setting static. Although it sounds like it's working fine for you, Ronald. But yeah, that's a common problem. My 1200, my Norcold, never cold. We call them never cold for a reason. But mine did that too. And when I put the fan kit on it, that helped quite a bit. I used to have problem with mine cooling when I'd get into hot, humid climates. So like I would be in Arkansas or in Ohio. Spent the summer out in Ohio and Michigan and out there in 2012 doing the music festival tour. But yeah, I get into that hot, steamy weather, and yeah, the fridge didn't cool very well. It was kind of a drag. But once I put that fan kit on, it got better. So while I'm thinking about it, your thumbs up is always greatly appreciated. It helps rank the video up, gets more people to see it. Supporting me on my Amazon store, there's a link in the description below, is free to you, and I get a small commission when you pay the exact same price, and that help is greatly appreciated. Visiting my website, trbolin.com, browsing around over there, maybe clicking on an ad or two is also nicely appreciated. And don't forget, throw your questions over in the chat window, and we'll get to them as we get down the list here. So Ronald, I hope that helped. Okay, so Aaron's got me squared away here. He says PEX A is made using peroxide or Ingle method. PEX B is formed using Silane or moisture cured method. Huh. I wonder what the difference is in performance. That's interesting. I wonder. I didn't even know there were two types of PEX, to be honest with you. Um, you know, I actually bought some PEX to fix the outside water line here this spring, and I actually had bought some PEX and replaced and repaired, made a few repairs on the RV with PEX too. Two Feathers says she's tardy, or they're tardy. Shamefully strolls to the back of the class. Two Feathers, I have an answer for you. You'd mentioned something on the video I released on Sunday about fixing the vacuum breaker on the toilet. That if I didn't quit hugging toilets, that I'd never find a girlfriend. And I was thinking that. But when I do find one, they'll be really appreciative that I don't mind hugging toilets. Okay, Zach White says, my wife says thank you. Well, tell your wife she's welcome, as are you. Do you suggest me leaving water in my gray tank for a while to soak up the smell? I'm familiar with your steps mentioned on your website. Thanks, we're full-timing or full-time RV living. Oh, so you're full-time in it? Okay. So a slight modification to that, Zach. For a couple weeks, put about a quarter to a third of a tank of water in your gray tank. Treat it with borax and with the orange cleaner. Okay, I'm assuming that you're sitting static. We'll talk about if you're sitting parked for now. And then use the tank like normal till it's almost full. And then drain it. And then repeat that cycle. And you may need to do it a couple times. But that'll eventually get it cleaned out. Now, if you're moving around, then do the road flush on it. Because that'll clean it up just like that. But yeah, so if you're full-time in it, yeah, just like start with a third of a tank of water in the gray tank. Add the borax and your degreaser, Zep, anything like that. And then just use it like normal. And again, it might take 2-3 weeks, but eventually it'll clear up and it should stop smelling. Now, if you're still getting a little bit of smell from the floor or around that trap, just take a little bit of peroxide, brown bottle peroxide, and just pour a little bit around on the floor and let it kind of run down around that pipe. You don't soak it, but just put a little bit in there. That peroxide will oxidize all those the compounds that are making the smell, especially if it's like in the floor, and that'll help clear that up, just using a little bit of peroxide. Beer Fanboy. I'm in the process of winterizing it. I'm so lazy I'm spreading it out over a week or so. Hey, whatever works for you, dude. That's just fine. I do projects like that all the time. I've been working on my home renovation for over a year now. I'm still not done. Larry Thiel says, I have a 2015 Cougar Light. The fiberglass is brown and really faded. How can I restore the color? Thanks. Well, if it's brown, you're probably going to have to paint it. And you can easily paint fiberglass. There's nothing to it. So just sand it up really nice. Start with about 100 grit and sand it up. Get it nice and smooth. Get up to about 250 grit. Sand it up nice and smooth. Tack it off with a good tack cloth. And then get yourself a good can of enamel paint and just paint it. Once it gets brown, there's nothing you can do to it to restore the color other than paint it. That brown is the fiberglass. The surface of the fiberglass has oxidized. It's probably been chemically weathered, from acid rain and all this other, nastiness in the atmosphere. And yeah, once they're brown, you can't restore them other than paint them. But you can still paint them. I mean, just sand it out, get it nice and smooth and clean. Get yourself some good enamel paint. Rust-Oleum comes to mind. You can use rattle cans or paintbrush. That enamel, the Rust-Oleum enamel, flows really nice. But depending upon how big the area is, if it's just a small area, then I'd probably just use rattle cans. Carla, you're very welcome, Carla. Abby Milo. Hi, Abby. Great to have you in. F53 chassis. Do you need to follow Ford's recommendation to change out the coolant and brake fluid? Yes. The reason is those things, like the brake fluid. In fact, if you were listening when I first started tonight, I mentioned that I was out today getting my Subaru serviced. And what I was having done was I was having the brake fluid changed, and I was having the front and rear differential serviced, and then I had spark plugs put in. And yeah, that brake fluid breaks down, and so that's why they want to replace it. It gets hot, it oxidizes, and yeah, so I would definitely recommend that. Also, the coolant, same thing. It breaks down over time. And so that's why they recommend that you replace those. And that will stop other problems inside your engine replacing the coolant. It'll stop your radiator from failing, because once the coolant gets to the end of life, it can really start to attack the radiator and cause some real problems with the radiator. So yes, Abby, I do recommend that you do follow Ford's recommendations and change out the coolant and the brake fluid. RH2669 says, also with PEX A, the fittings are the same internal diameter as the tubing. My Newmar uses PEX B, in which the internal diameter is smaller, so flow resistance is greater. PEX A also has greater expansion. Okay, I got you. So PEX A is the one that you stretch, that you have the tool that you pump up or whatever, and you stretch it to go over the fitting. And then Newmar, the fitting is about the same size as the hose, maybe slightly, a little bit bigger. And that way they use like an Otkin clamp on it to clamp them and hold them on. Okay, I got it. Makes sense. Thanks for the education. Appreciate that, Aaron and RH. Oh, PEX C. There's even a PEX C. Well, we're getting quite the PEX education, and I think that's great. PEX C, Aaron says, is created using the electronic irradiation or cold method of cross-linking. Interesting. Randy Waller asks, are you going to stay in Idaho for the winter? Yes. Tim Myers, lost audition audio. Have I lost my audio? Hello, check, test. 1, 2. Hello? Tim Myers. Okay. Well, I got audio on my side. Check your sound. Check your audio level. James Dick says, my new trailer has absolutely no outside 110-volt plugs. What would be the best way to install a couple? From where would be the best to take power from for this? Well, do you have a spare breaker in your breaker panel? I would install a new breaker, and then I would run the wire from that breaker panel, what you're going to find is usually you can snake it down the wall into a compartment, and then I would just put it in that compartment or somewhere close to there. Okay? And that's the way I would do it if you have an open breaker. If you don't, then you can find an electric line that's nearby and tie into it. But make sure you get a GFCI, by the way, on that outlet, on the outside circuit, on the outlet. On the outside outlet. How come that's so damn hard to say? Use a GFCI, okay? But yeah, I added 110 to mine. I put some in my electrical cabinet. There was already 110 in the basement, but I wanted some over in my electrical cabinet because I was trying to do my heated hose. And I didn't have an extension cord. Anyway, I ended up putting one in. Which reminds me of a question that came in from Lola, who's a regular viewer. She actually had a couple questions. These came in via email. I'll just read them to you. I watch my YouTube live show on Tuesdays. Awesome. I live in the Colorado foothills, and it gets frigid in winter. Yes, it does. Last winter, it got down to 16. I'm on a budget and want to get a great quality RV heated hose. She sent me the link for the Camco 25 footer. And yeah, that's a great hose. I would recommend that one, Lola. As a friendly reminder, you can buy it through my Amazon store, and I'll get a small commission, and you'll help out the channel. And if you don't, that's just fine too. Also had to do some repairs in the underbelly section. Notice that someone doing the previous repairs had taken out most of the insulation that lies under the gray holding tanks. What is left may be original material, looks like thick blonde hair. What do I recommend? I'll be doing the work myself. Can't get good help down here. Thank you. Just go get some pink insulation from Home Depot. R13 is just fine. That blonde hair, it's fiberglass insulation. It's just not Owens Corning fiberglass, which, by the way, has copyrighted that pink fiberglass. And usually the other manufacturers of fiberglass can't use pink. I may get stung on that, but I think that's right. I think Owens Corning owns that pink color. Also, she says I gave her some great advice regarding the fridge. It doesn't frost up now. So great, I'm glad to hear that. And then she said, also, been checking out foam board insulation for my RV this winter. What do I have to recommend? Maybe I could cover this topic for Tuesday's live show. Thanks. Well, Lola, yes. That 2-inch foam board you can get from your home improvement store is great for the skirting around fifth wheels. I do recommend that you get something to cover the foam with. A lot of people will get like siding or roofing, like metal roofing or something like that. If it's a permanent installation, if you don't move your fifth wheel, so I'm thinking like you're set on a permanent lot, then yeah, definitely putting the skirting on and with insulation is a great idea. Any amount of cold air you can keep from getting underneath that RV is going to keep you so much more comfortable in the winter. Trust me. Okay. Aaron has a video on painting fiberglass. Excellent. There you go. So there's a link for you right there. Go over to Aaron's channel and check that out. Excellent. Thanks, Aaron. And you're welcome, Larry. Ted Friskness made it back. Hey, how's it going? Judy White. Oh, Zach White. Okay. I used your system in our black tank and it worked amazing. I've got my black tank under control. We don't have any smells, but the gray tank smells are bad. Thanks for your help. I'll report back. Great. Judy White. She says, Judy, are you with Zach or are you a different White? Thanks. Hi, TR. Tanks are doing great. No smelly water either. Thanks again. You're so welcome, Judy. I'm glad I could help. Thanks, Aaron. Round Town Scouter, audio and video 5x5. Okay. It was just Tim freaking me out. Zach White. TR is the GOAT of RV questions and answers. I hope this continues to grow. I've had too many beers, so good night. Good night, Zach. Thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate you. Tim Gurr. Ronald Lee. My Onan 7.5 QD shut down after 5 minutes. I got a code 24. Should I change the temp sensor and thermostat or change the coolant first? The coolant has never been changed. 475 hours on the generator. Yeah, you know, they don't use that much coolant, and that's a good idea. I would change the coolant first. I would flush it and change it. And while you're doing that, you might want to change the oil too. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to change the coolant on that. But you might end up, I would, if I was going to be changing things, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd start with the temp sensor. I think I might change the coolant first, and then the thermostat if you still have a problem, and then the temp sensor. And then if you still have a problem, boy, I don't know. We'll have to do a little bit deeper digging on that, Ron. But code 24, yeah, okay. Good question, Aaron. And Judy White, different White. Thank you, LOL. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so any other questions or comments, things you want to throw over in the chat, that would be great. I'll take a quick pause for the cause and have a sip of tea here. And say that I promised, and I've talked about this before, but I've been promising to talk about this for a couple weeks. And in fact, I've been working on an article, when time permits, around buying used RVs and the things you want to watch for. We had CNS Schooley was asking some questions about an RV he was considering buying, and we kind of put together a list just off the cuff during that chat, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, guys. But the one thing that always comes to mind, and this just makes me chuckle, and I see it all the time, got myself a new to me RV, and it only had 23,000 miles, and it's a 2004. Okay. To me, that's a danger sign. That means that rig wasn't used much. Here's something about Class A RVs. Not so much travel trailers, fifth wheels, but Class A and Class C RVs, particularly Class A RVs, those chassis are built to run. Those chassis are the same chassis they put in delivery trucks, in big old delivery trucks. And they are made to run. And if you don't run them, the seals get all hard. And what will happen is like, you have turning shafts and they have seals around them. Well, if that shaft sits in one spot, it'll create a flat spot in that seal, and then you got a leak. Your gaskets will dry out. So I recommend that if you're storing your RV for winter, you run over and you read the article on my website, Do You Do Winter Maintenance? Because one of the things I mentioned in that is starting and running the RV regularly, once a month. And if you're not in a snowy climate, it's nice if you can get it out and drive it a little bit too. At a minimum, you want to start the engine and let it warm up for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, in a lot of newer RVs, newer coaches, they don't like to be idled. The Cummins will scream at you at 5 minutes. If you idle it for 5 minutes, it'll scream at you. Because what happens is that the longer you idle on those newer engines that have DEF, okay, the more clogged up the exhaust regen system will get. Then it forces you into a regen situation. So they don't like to idle them. There's an alarm. I know that on my aunt and uncle's 2006 on the Spartan with Cummins, it would idle 5 minutes and then it would scream at me that I was idling it too much. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. But yeah, low mileage RVs are older low mileage RVs are something to be very careful with. Excuse me. Because although it may look pristine, it might be in great shape inside, but mechanically, it could be a real problem. And it gets expensive really fast. Trust me, I got a tickle. I had to drop $30,000 for a new engine in 2017, and I thought my coach had reasonable amount of mileage on it. Now it's probably a combination of lack of maintenance from the previous owner and who knows what. But yeah, so low mileage coaches are not what you want to be looking for. You want to look to have 3 to 5,000 miles a year on it. So if you're buying a 20-year-old coach, I would say 60,000 miles would be minimum, and I would probably want to see a bit more on it. That doesn't mean it's wore out. That means it's been used and it just didn't sit somewhere for years and years and rot. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I get a chuckle out of when people are buying RVs is they think that low mileage is everything. We've been trained to think about that by cars, okay? Everybody wants to get a new car and then they want to brag about how low the miles were on it. I don't know what the mentality is behind that. I guess it's, like they think they got a deal. Well, again, I think a used car, a 20-year-old used car with 10,000 miles on it, I don't know if that would be a car that I'd want to get into because you're probably going to be mechanicaled a lot. In other words, breaking down a lot. Lots of oil leaks and stuff like that. Unless you plan on, going through it from front to back. So, thoughts on that? Okay. Okay, let's see here. He says, um, Aaron had asked Ronald Lee on his question around his Onan 7.5, shutting off with the code 24, about changing the coolant. And Ronald responded back to Aaron and said he doesn't know if the oil had been changed on the generator bought the coach used 2 months ago. And I'm with Aaron. Yeah, I would change them both. If you don't know, change it out. I think that's a good policy. Tom Downey says, 2,400 miles, we lost 2 gallons of cooling. It's not leaking. Well, you know what that means. If it's not leaking and you're losing coolant, it's probably burning it. You probably have a head gasket leak somewhere. I know, you don't want to hear that. After going through all of the roundabout rigmarole you did on the engine controller and ECM and transmission control module and grounding and all the funky stuff that's been going on, Tom. But yeah, if you lost 2 gallons and there's no sign of it leaking out anywhere, it's eating it somewhere. When you put the 2 gallons back in, did it stay full or what? Ted Fiskness says, quick question, is there supposed to be a latch, fail-safe, for the motorized awning to keep it secure for travel? I don't see anything of sorts on mine. 19 Aspen Trail, bought it used. Okay, the way those things wind up is there's a spring inside. And so the spring tension, it unwinds the spring tension when the awning goes out. So the springs unwind. And so the tension increases on those springs, right? When that awning goes out. Because that spring in there is in there to help roll that awning up. And so naturally, the tension on that spring will hold your awning in. So you really don't need any kind of a latch, okay? However, if that spring breaks, then that awning's going to come out. But no, it's the tension in the spring that holds that awning in, and that's why they don't usually have latches. Now you can get these little latches that go over the arms. Okay, it's just a little flip latch, piece of metal, but you can put those on the arm, and because a lot of manual awnings will have these latches that hold the awning into the side of the coach. But automatic awnings, electric awnings, oftentimes don't, because the spring tension holds the awning in. John, good to have a good night. Thank you. Oh, he's got to get out at around 4. So thanks for watching, John. We'll see you next week. Tom Downey, need a Crown Royal. Yeah. Something to break up the tickle in my throat. That was all right. Okay, so Tom says he doesn't know yet when it cools. We will check. Yeah. You're very welcome, Ted. Thank you for watching and being part of the show tonight. Don't forget, if you do have a question, to throw it over there in the chat window. Happy to answer your questions. Also, if you're just sitting out there lurking, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Always appreciate that. But yeah, it looks like wow, I wasn't even paying attention. We had 42 in the house, and we've got 38 still connected. You know, it's holding pretty steady, considering that it's getting on to be winter and everybody's probably bored with RVing. You know, it's all good. I'm having a good time, and I'll keep doing this as long as people come and ask questions. That's kind of the way I like to run the show. You know, I'll go an hour and a half if the questions are there. Otherwise, I try to keep it down to an hour. And tonight we might be a little bit less than an hour. So get your questions in over there. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up just in time. Jason, awesome, thanks. Had some chipmunks in AC chewed on wires. Got them out and fixed wires. Is there anything to keep them buggers out? Yes. You can get some wire welded fabric, dog wire sometimes. And you want the stuff with the small openings, you know, the little half-inch squares. Then just take your awning off, or just take the fairing off, the top of that of your the cover on your AC is called the fairing. I'll get it out yet. And you can pop that off, and you could just put that, take and cut a piece of metal and cover the vents on the fairing with that wire on the inside. And you don't have to be fancy about it. You can just tape it up there. Should be just fine. And then put it back on, but make sure it sits tight up against the inside of the fairing. And that'll keep them out. The small wire, they won't chew. They can't chew through. Their teeth are pretty tough, but they won't chew through that wire. Screen isn't quite as effective because they can chew through that screen because, you know, screen is a finer mesh. But that dog wire is very effective, and it won't change the cooling on your AC at all. It'll just keep those critters out. But I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a pain in the rear. It's the same problem you get when you get mice. You don't want to have that happen. So hopefully that helps, Jason. Karen Kelly says, I'm lurking still in Tacoma, Washington. Great show. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. Two Feathers says, I'd suggest if you're sitting in a horrific windstorm, you may want to have your awning on the protected side. I found out the hard way. Yeah, so did I. Long short story. In 2019, on my southward migration, normally I'll kind of flip back and forth. I like to go over to Moab and drop down through Moab and down around that side of Utah, down around Valley of the Gods and down through that area. And so I had stayed at Moab for 5 nights, and took off and went to a Wind Whistle campground, which is a really cool little spot right there in Canyonlands, just outside of Canyonlands. And I got there and I went to unhook the toad, and I realized the keys were missing, and I couldn't find my keys anywhere. And I looked everywhere for those keys. So the only thing I could figure is I lost him at the RV park in Moab. So I instantly called them. Oh no, they hadn't seen him. But anyway, the long short story is I figured I'd lost my keys. Fortunately, I had a spare set of everywhere. I moved from Wind Whistle down to out to dry camping in Valley of the Gods in Utah, near Bluff, Utah. And I got a phone call from the RV park in Moab, said they found my keys. Awesome. So I didn't even think. I just went out and jumped in the car, and I drove the 90 minutes back up to Moab to only find out that it was the wrong set of keys. They weren't my keys. Learned a lesson to ask, does it have this kind of a fob on it? Well, anyway. Time I got home, I had left the awning out, and there were some thunder cells in the area, and yeah, I lost my awning to a windstorm, so I know exactly what you're talking about. My insurance paid for that. Of course, I paid the deductible, but yeah, my insurance paid for that. Insurance is to protect stupid people from themselves, and anyway, we won't get into that too much. Larry McBride, who's out near my dad in Arkansas, says, I'm going to be putting my old gal up for the winter. Yeah. It's getting to be that time of the year, isn't it? You know, Aaron, I don't know. My spies haven't reported that he did, but this time of the year he could probably go 2 weeks without mowing the lawn. Tom Downey says, can you believe Canyon Lakes had openings? Yes, because the Canadians still can't come south. They can't cross the border. And so, yeah, I suspect that all of the RV parks in the West, Texas and West, probably have plenty of openings because the Canadians, there's thousands of Canadians that would come south for winter. And they can't come south because the border's not open. Now, I thought somebody mentioned in the last couple of chats, somewhere in the last couple of chats, that they thought they might open it around the first part of November. But that's probably why. Anyway, that's, my swag, sort of a wild ass guess. Judy White, bored never. Okay, thanks, Randy. Awesome to have you in. Thank you so much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. Ronald Lee says, thank you for answering my questions. You helped me a lot. Excellent. I'm glad I could, Ronald. Jason, you're very welcome. Thanks. Yep. And, yep, being safe. 2 feathers, 70 miles an hour windstorm worked my awning out even though it was closed. Yeah. It can do that. Ted Fisness, real quick, batteries. 2 6-volts or just a good 12-volt? Well, I'm assuming you're thinking 2 6-volts in serial, right? Which will give you 12 volts. And so it really comes down to how many amp hours are in the batteries. I think you could probably get by with one 12-volt. And get as big, get one with as many amp hours as you can get. But yeah, 112-volt should be just fine. Oh, there you go. Great. That's a great idea, Aaron. He says he was responding to 2 feathers. Cheap fix is to go to the dollar store and get cheap dog collars and place them around the arm of the awning. Yeah, that would hold the arm in, and that's a good one. Yep. Tom Downey says, we lost the whole awning on Deception Pass in 70-mile-per-hour winds. We now have safeties to stop that. Yeah, good call. Oh, yeah, 2 Feathers says she's got some now. Had to do a thumbs up and say hi. Thanks, Dave Cottrell. It's awesome to have you in tonight. Thank you for joining. All right, well, we're coming up on 8 o'clock, so we'll make one last call for questions. I think we had a great show tonight. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. Another quick plug. Don't forget to visit me over on the web, trboland.com. If you're not subscribed, subscribe and ring the notification bell so you'll be notified. I do have a lot more of personal videos now coming. I've got a video coming up on Sunday, me renovating my lawn. And this video took a year to produce because I wanted to wait a year to show the before and after shot. So anyway, that'll be coming up Sunday night at 7. And then in 2 weeks, I should have the RV replacement video up and rolling on Sunday again at 7. So I'm not going to commit to anything because every time I do, something comes up and then it blows up. But I'm going to try to do 2 a week. I'll do the lives on Tuesday, and then I'll try to do either a home renovation video or an RV how-to video or an RV living video on Sundays. 7 p.m. we'll premiere them. So I think we're going to call it an evening. Thank you, Aaron. You are the man. Tom Downey. The Newmar was on 2 wheels. Yeah, that's pretty good when you can get 30,000 pounds leaning up on 2 wheels. I've been in windstorms bad enough that I've got up and put the jacks down and brought the slides in, for sure. Yeah, and go over and check out Aaron's channel, Three Tails RV. There's a link in the chat window there. Thanks, Tim. Awesome to have you in. Two Feathers, thank you for being in here tonight. And everybody else, thanks so much. I really greatly appreciate your participating and joining in the chat and joining us on Tuesday evenings, and I hope you enjoy the show. But I think we're going to call her good for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I sure do appreciate it. Till we get together next week, peace. Bye. All right, where's it at? Here we go. Good night.